Hello and welcome. If I've uploaded this properly, it is just after the patch notes and official release day for Valir, the Banished Isle, and Innistrad, Witching Hour. Two very exciting sets coming to Revolution on May 1st. I'm going to be in this review going over 10 decks that I think are worth trying in the new rotation. Um, Before I go over the decks, which I'm very excited to do, some caveats. First, I built these decks, pretty quickly. They're by no means polished. There's a lot of two ofs and three ofs and one ofs. Often I start out a deck with a lot of two ofs and three ofs and one ofs, and as I play the deck, I'll realize what I want to cut, what I need more of, and the deck list will get more refined over time. Especially the sideboards. The sideboards really depend on what's going on in the meta, and I got no clue what's going on in the meta. Second thing to note, um, you know what the patch notes are. I know most of the patch notes, so because of my insider information, as I'm recording this, I don't have the full renders, but I know most of the cards that are changing going into May. I don't know some of the Innistrad changes, and I don't know any of the Exalt of Twilty or Solastaire changes. Those are hidden from me. So there's some cases where, and I haven't updated Escape from Limbo because the renders don't even exist yet. So there's going to be some cards here that have been nerfed, like you know the nerfed version of Sunset Champion, but I'm going to be showing you the unnerfed version. I'll be mentioning cards that are nerfed and how they are nerfed if I know about a nerf um, as I go through them, because a lot of the nerf cards I think are still very much good enough to see play. Third caveat, I definitely missed things. You should explore on your own. There's tons of powerful cards I didn't put in these decks. Um, it's going to be a great brewing time. I really do think that it's a huge patch, as you've seen, and the format seems pretty wide open. And where do you go when the format's wide open? Why, you play white-red aggro. I'm calling it Reg Anarch, because rebels are kind of like Anarchs. This is just white-red heavy creature aggro. Starting off with the ones with Chapel Crasher as and Melon and Vi as 3/1 drops that really want you to play a lot of creatures. Um, Chapel Crasher is going to get big. There's a lot of incidental rebels in this deck, all of them from Valir. Melon's just good at protecting your bigger creatures, which you do have some of. Vi, the first hero, is just going to be a very good attacker. Flip into a Planeswalker that gives you a little extra removal and card draw, which this deck needs because it's almost all creatures. Up at 2 mana, we got Ash Elven Pyromaniac, which even though it lost one of its modes, is still a very good and resilient threat. I'm valuing resiliency a lot because although there's a lot of creature deck, I think there's a lot of good creature synergies in these two sets. There's a lot of good sweepers also in the format. A lot of very good control elements. So resiliency is important. Card advantage is important on the one of Cash Thrasher. Geist Marshal is also resiliency of a kind. This got nerfed. It no longer has flying, and it no longer makes flyers, I believe. But I think this is still an incredibly powerful 2-drop. In a creature dense deck like this, anything but a sweeper is going to um, going to be very hard pressed to get rid of this, especially if you can get it through repeatedly. Which this deck can by buffing it with stuff like Fabricated Anomaly. Obviously, great with creatures of all sizes. It helps this deck find the cards it needs when it needs them. Valiant Firebrand helps your stuff get through the various token clogged board states. More card advantage. There's not really another discard outlet in this deck other than the Fabricated Anomaly token, but you don't really need one. Valiant Firebrand works perfectly well on its own. There's also Containment Seraph. Containment Seraph, the card I keep finding myself putting into these deck lists. It's not the most powerful thing, but I want interaction, but so many of these teams want me to play a ton of creatures, so I just end up going for Containment Seraph as my creature that is an answer, which is kind of the best of that type we have right now. And up for the full 4 copies of Sunset Champion, even as 4/4, only exiling 1 card, which I believe is the nerf. This is still just an amazing 4-drop. And this deck, despite being just almost all creatures, is going to have a lot of staying power because of Sunset Champion, Valiant Firebrand, Flipped Vi, Geist Marshal, and Ash, Paramedic, and Cash Thrasher, while still preventing very strong, aggressive boards. 6 burn spells, 4 bleeding out, 2 coordinated shot, going for only burn that can go face. land base is mostly normal, but with 2 Crucible of Bound Flame. Only 4 planes, 4 Primal Fissure, so not going to be able to get this untapped too often, but it's just such a good creature land, especially in an aggro deck. Often you'll be like, oh, I could play Sunset Champion, or I could activate my Crucible of Bound Flame and just kill them, and you'll do that instead. Otherwise, just Primal Fissure, Temple, Windbeaten Stones, the stuff you expect. Sideboard's got Full Moon Assault for creature mirrors. Golden Knight Purgeblade also getting nerfed, but still very good for mid-range decks. Guardian's Charm for miscellaneous permanents. Helia Lacespire, you're going to see a lot of this card through this review. You could also play Crucible, that's perfectly fine. Burning Sun, not Bound Flame. As your graveyard hate of choice. So many of the themes coming in these 2 sets have to do with graveyards. There's Ancient, there's Aristocrats, there's a Nerf, there's zombies, there's vampires, there's looters, there's all sorts of things that want you to fill your graveyards. Helia Lacespire is going to be good against so many of these decks. And a really nice sideboard option I found, Rally the Rabble. I really like against control decks diversifying your threats and especially putting in card advantage that they don't have good interaction for. Unfortunately, Artifact would be better because of Fateful Ascent is a very main decked card out of control decks. That still kills this, but still, they're not going to have a ton of answers to Rally the Rabble post-board most of the time, and then you can run that out and just have a ton of card advantage on your 2-mana enchantment with all of these creatures. I think this is like a good default deck, and there's so many different options you could play. Like, you could slant this white, you could play Consume the Divine, that's easy. You could play Toki. There's so many things you could play. And I'm going to be doing these roughly in increasing order of slowness, I guess. Decreasing order of speed, that would make more sense. So we're going on to another aggro deck. Aggro-ish. Grixis Looters. So I think Looters gets a ton of stuff. It's already been a good deck. Basically, the idea is we're going to discard cards to Greedy Duelist. I believe this is now a combat damage trigger, but it's still excellent. And Ignited Soul. And also, we're going to discard card. We're going to fill our graveyard with Research Grant, putting stuff in our graveyard. Unstable Experimentation rummages stuff away. Gilded Noon Entertainer, Fabricated Anomaly. So we got tons of ways to fill our graveyard. What are we putting in our graveyard? Well, Scuttling Cicadas, so we can get them back. Leowen is also a way to loot and fill our graveyard. We're going to put Scuttling Cicadas in our graveyard. We're going to put Coordinated Shots and Discerns, which have flashback. We're going to put Dawnsworn Survivors in there so we can get them back. And also, because we're drawing and discarding so many cards, we're able to do really great things with Marl, Vicar O'Head, which is going to, like, all of our draw discard now become draw 2, discard 1. I think this is a very good synergy. Turn 1, Greedy Duelist. Turn 2, hit them, rummage. I don't know, Unstable Experimentation, your guy. Turn 3, Marl, hit with Greedy Duelist, discard 1, draw 2. That's just great. You got tons of card advantage. All of your card draw helps you to flip Research Grant really easily. Great at doubling up all your burn spells. Just burns them out in the late game. Or you can double a Surfaced Scuttling Cicada for a little bit of value. Mana base is a little scary looking. I want to get some paths in there. His deck is very low curving, and I have a lot of turn 1 mana demands between the Ignited Souls and the Greedy Duelists. And the Discerns, and occasionally you want to main deck a Scuttling Cicada. Oh yeah, Greedy Duelists can also sacrifice Scuttling Cicadas if you had to cast one. Sometimes you have a Scuttling Cicada on board and you really want a way to put it in your graveyard. Greedy Duelists can also do that. Otherwise, tons of Shocklands, Primal Fissure, just keeping things really normal here. This deck has a lot of mana requirements, Marl, as well. Oh, and I didn't mention 3 Exorcist of Errors in the main, because Exorcist of Errors is good. And if you're going into black, you might as well. Sideboard has your choice of hand attack between Listen In and Duress. Listen In, I think, has some definite potential into some of these strategies, but you also do want Duress sometimes hitting. There's a lot of very relevant sorceries this deck would like to hit. Frag, your opponents are going to be bringing in their Graveyard Hate. You're going to need answers to it. Frag hits the Graveyard Hate artifacts, and Twilight Ambush hits the Graveyard Hate Helia Lacespires. And Unmarked Headstones. This is there's not a lot of asymmetric Graveyard Hate in the format. There's Helia Lacespire, but otherwise, most Graveyard Hate hits both players. And this deck, it wants to remove cards from its graveyard, and it wants its cards in graveyard to have abilities, so it really has no particular Graveyard Hate it wants to get hit by. So Unmarked Headstones is your Graveyard Hate of choice. Another thing you can loot away, and then while it's in your graveyard, you can use it to hate out your opponent's graveyard. Also, if in a pinch, 0 mana card for Research Grant, draws cards for Research Grant, draws cards for Marl, etc. Yep, Rictus Looters, it's still good. Um, it's been kind of on the downswing ever since it lost Igneous Visions, but I think it's still very much a deck worth looking out for. Moving up the curve, Red Green Savage. This is a Savage deck, trying to enable a couple specific payoffs. Mainly Darksicket Howler is a card that's pretty good mono dork and can become a card draw engine later if you have Savage creatures. Card draw and ramp, those are two tastes that taste great together. And also, this is an Embers of a New Moon deck. This is Thoughtcast for wolves or werewolves. If you can just have enough wolves or werewolves, and I think this deck has just barely enough, you can have a 1 mana draw 2, which is completely nuts. And gives this deck a ton of velocity you wouldn't expect, even with turn 1 Calamity Cats and Huskforger Acolytes, helping to empty your hand. I even have the Kieran of Boon's main deck. You side this out a lot against decks where blocking doesn't matter, but I'm putting it main deck, even though I'm not sure if that's right. You do need a 2-drop, and it is okay in that slot. Also in the 2-drops, we've got Bleeding Out. But you know what we're ramping into with these Huskforgers? Lots of 3-drops. Brazen Burglar as a 1-of, but also Fabricated Anomaly, of course. Profane Invoker is a 3-mana werewolf. The backside of this recast instant or sorceries, mana value 2 or less. We got Full Moon Assault, Embers of New Moon, and Bleeding Out to meet those criteria. Little light, but it's not going to flip immediately anyway, so you'll have time to figure that out. Foreign Encounter gets any of these excellent 3s. You usually cast Foreign Encounter pre-combat, so you can get your hasty cards or Fabricated Anomaly if you want them. Just a couple of 4-drop Huntmaster of the Fells to up the werewolf count, and Sunset Champion just because it's excellent. Unfortunately, the snake, not a wolf. Bleeding Out, Full Moon Assault as burn, and that's just a nice, tight, mostly red but green for a few key cards aggro deck. This is the kind of deck that I find myself building a lot in this new format. A lot of the combo stuff is getting nerfed. Zukar's getting hit. Last Wish is getting hit. Envoy got put in the ground. So I'm kind of... The problem with a deck like this is it's so fair. Like, this deck has no way of interacting with a combo deck. It has very little way of interacting with a control deck, or a deck just plays like 13 sweepers. And so it really has to rely on the opponent playing a fair game plan, and then it can play pretty well. But this is the kind of deck I'm building a lot of, where I'm a little worried that, like, if someone finds a combo in month 1, this is the kind of deck that just, you can't play it because it just can't do anything against combo. Unlike like a black-based aggro deck, that at least you can run Exorcist of Errors, and that's good against them. Mono base, 23 lands, Desolate Pinnacle, this is getting nerfed as well. I believe the sack ability has changed somehow, and you can now either have it enter untapped or Surveil 1. I'm not even sure that's a nerf, because now you can have the Surveil 1 whenever you want, and you can have the untapped whenever you want. Aggro decks are going to play the heck out of these Desolate lands. You could easily play 4. Who cares about paying the life? Sideboard, Advance and Fire Faith. This is in the conversation of anti-aggro 2-drop. If we're about tokens, I think this is the one you play. Crucible of the Burning Sun. This is the wrong render. It shouldn't have that last ability. But that's... this deck has no graveyard synergies, so it can just play, apart from the backside of Profane Evoker, I guess, so it can just play Crucible all day. Crumbling Tower, to try to give you some game against control. Eviva, the mono base, can support. More Full Moon Assault for creature matchups, and Hungry Blob for artifacts and enchantments. Moving up, we got Is It Spells. Now, there's a card not in the room, which is really kind of weighing heavily over this deck. And I can't spell it. It's Clash at Mistrit Vale. So as I said, I don't know what changes are happening to any of the cards of Exalt the Twiltree. I know there's a Clash at Mistrit Vale nerf coming. I don't know what it is. If this card is still playable, because currently Clash of Mistrit Vale is the reason to be a blue-red spells deck. Like, blue-red spells is losing a lot. You're losing Terminal Impact, you're losing Force Ejection, you're losing High Voltage. All super relevant cards to be losing, but Clash of Mistrit Vale is so powerful that it's kind of carrying the entire strategy. If Clash of Mistrit Vale gets put in the ground, which I think it might, I don't know if Is It Spells really holds on. If Clash of Mistrit Vale is still a playable card, then yeah, you put them in this deck, and this deck's probably still good. And it's not just Clash. So many of the Is It Spells cards got hit going into this rotation. Demented Pyroalchemist is down to once per turn. Havigal Prodigy is now an 0-3. 3 and 4 toughness is a huge benchmark in this format because bleeding out and coordinated shot and unstable experimentation and lunar awe, so many and all the 3 damage sweepers, all four of them, all three damage sweepers. Um, so many reasons why you want that 4th point of toughness, and unfortunately, having Go Prize, you don't got it. Possible that's enough to make you not run this and just go back to running Dream Physician instead. Ominous Frogs up takes 4 counters, now backsides the 4/4 instead. But even with all those nerfs, I think all these cards are still very playable. You're going to be a little slower if without Clash at Mistrit Vale, but still, tons of value. And Cordelius Ripper and Cascade Chandler, still great. This is another Research Grant deck, another Unstable Experimentation deck. Stargazing is a huge boon for any of these. Cast an instant or sorcery triggers could get you 2 cats for 1 card, as does Discern. Salt Scour mills yourself to give you fodder for Havengal Prodigy. Blade Flourish, burn that can go face. Lunar Awe as your instant speed burn could be Unstable Experimentation easily. I think this deck, as it currently sits, looks a little fair. It probably you want to streamline this and just pick whatever the best of these payoffs is. I'd probably start out by trying all of these payoffs and then very quickly settle on the one that feels the most busted. Mono base has once again Desolate Lands because we're an aggro deck. Otherwise, just your normal fetches, shocks, and Temple of Origins. Sideboard's got Advance again. Dream Physician, I honestly think it might just be the right main deck play. 3/4 is the best stat line in the format right now because that's the easiest stat line to dodge. All the 3 mana burn and Twilight Damage. So Dream Physician is just perfectly positioned. Flutter is the best graveyard hate you can run in this deck, which is a little sad, but it's okay, and it can protect some important creatures sometimes. Frag is important. It all comes together. Nerf to 3 mana, but still a good sideboard plan against decks that aren't going to be able to interact with it. And one of Negate rounding out the sideboard. Looks like a lot of fun. Little slower. Green, white, blinkety, bouncity nonsense. This is a Restoring Presence deck. This is a very good blink spell, also great to put in your graveyard. What are we blinking? Let's blink a Concurrent Escapist. That actually works, because it doesn't check if you cast it, just checks if it isn't a token. Same with Survivor of the New World. You can blink that, get 2 more Survivors. Blink a Melon to get your Pledge. Blink a Skyray Tender for another token. Blink a Durisha. If you Syra in play, you can blink Syra and another creature to draw a card, or Syra and 2 other creatures to draw a card and put +1/+1 counters into it, and gain a ton of life. And Containment Seraph, you can do the old-fashioned trick. Containment Seraph has 2 different triggers, so you could Containment Seraph, in response to the enter trigger, Restoring Presence it, they don't get any tokens, and you exile 2 of their things. That's pretty good. This is another deck where I really wish Survivor of the New World could get me removal, and that's why I ended up on Containment Seraph. And of course, this is a Contest Coordinator deck. Gets Restoring Presence, gets Melon, gets Huskforger, gets Concurrent Escapist, gets Welkin Eviction, bunch of planes in the mono base, because once again, this is a Welkin Eviction deck. And it also has Sanctum of Repression, has more ways to bounce your Melons and your Skyray Tenders, and your Concurrent Escapists and your Survivors. This deck just never runs out of gas, millions of cards, even has a decent amount of interaction between Containment Seraph and the enchantments. Looks good against aggro, looks playable against control, maybe a little fair. I put in the 1 Durisha just so you can go over the top in case you end up in mid-range mirrors a lot. You could also put Honesty in that slot. I got one of those in the sideboard. Mono base has a lot of planes, so Heart of the Glade, Lacafey Observatory, and Stack and Viviplex are more planes for Contest Coordinator and Welkin Eviction, although there still is 3 Verdant Sanctum and 4 Solstice Circle, because human, angel, human, 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 human. So you're going to have this online basically all the time, and untapped duels are good. I didn't even put the untapped duel in this deck. You could have, whatever that one's called, the Gregory one that kills the Wolves and Werewolves. You're a little light. I maybe wouldn't rely on it. Sideboard, we got more Durishas to go over the top. Once again, honestly, could do that. Guardian Charm for random permanents, and for dealing with Nightfall and other sweepers. Helia Lacespire hits graveyards, Oberys, artifacts, and enchantments in aggro decks. Plasma Strike, more anti-aggro stuff. Yeah, I'm actually pretty high on this going into the format. You could also build this in a Concord direction, but I think just the Blink direction of Contest Coordinator is probably a little more reliable. Go up the curve. Speaking of decks, I said is it spells that the nerf bat got swung around pretty loosely. Boy, Black White Crits got hit with a lot of nerfs. As you may have heard, they put Envoy of the Fallen in the ground. It's not really worth playing anymore, and so there's no reason for your Aristocrat deck to be blue anymore, and there's not really that much reason for it to be red, honestly. So I'm building this just straight white-black. Also, unfortunately, Tinua got hit. Who else in this deck got hit? Tinua got hit. The curse. What's that called? Curse. What's that thing called? Curse of Profane Offerings. You'd love to run that in this deck. That got smacked. So your rewards. So fodder, we got tons. Fledgling Sycophant, Hollowhenge Martyr, Sacrificial Lamb, Smiling Sludge gets you fodder. Offer the Faithless, sure. So much fodder. Ways to sacrifice that fodder? Tons. Siren, Deadly Dispute, Beyond the Shroud, Sundering the Fleet, Card Draw, Removal, and Reanimation, and more tokens all over the place. And ways to pay yourself off for sacrificing a bunch of creatures? Little tighter on those. Once again, Smiling Sludge is still excellent, but then, like, Tinua can double up your stuff, but it's 3 mana now. Westvale Adherent can do a thing, but once again, it's 3 mana. Eyes of the Observer is once per turn. Kaga's Mercenary is good, but it only cares about non-tokens and only creatures. So yeah, this is a deck that can draw a ton of cards and do a decent amount and do a little bit of removing and certainly clog up the board a lot, but actually winning the game is a difficult proposition. I'm not sure how you're meant to do that in Aristocrats these days. Like, am I meant to attack my opponent with these creatures? They're all so small. Maybe I do a reanimation package as well, so I can use the -2 on Siren? That seems a little loose, because I have no discard outlets. Yeah, this is kind of a mystery to me. I'm not really sure what the right way to build this is. I start like this, but I would be unsurprised if this was not the right way to build Aristocrats. But there's got to be something there. There's just gotta. Mono base has Desolate Garrison, by the way, to make more tokens. That's just a great thing to have on your land, and this deck gains a lot of life, so it can afford the life loss there. Otherwise, normal mono base. Sideboard, consult the offerings. What's the black-white hybrid, what was that thing called? What is that thing? Bind Life to Steel. Bind Life to Steel was really important for this deck before. Consult the Offerings is a fine replacement. You can get back Siren, that's nice. Of course, you want Exorcist in the sideboards and Golden Blooms. Golden Bloom turns off their graveyard hate, and Exorcist turns off their everything. Serve Again grinds like heck in a deck like this. Man, can you imagine Serve Again with Hollowhenge Martyr? Just makes 5 bodies. What, no, 6 bodies from the one card? Complete nonsense. And of course, Twilight Ambush. You always want cheap removal in your sideboard. So yeah, there's so much black-white Aristocrat support in these two sets that there's gotta be a good deck in there somewhere. I don't know how to build it. I'm terrible at building these kinds of decks. You figure it out. I think the key is just finding out how you're going to kill your opponent. I don't think the solution is like Eyes of the Observer. There's gotta be a more unfair way to kill them than that. Let's talk Black-Green Kumrox. This is a deck that doesn't get a ton, but the things it does get are pretty important. So this is a Huskforger Acolyte deck, and we're going past the 2-drops of the Ever-Reliable Exorcist of Errors, and we also got Blightstalker. As I said, tons of graveyard hate in this format. Sorry, tons of graveyard decks in this format, so main deckable graveyard hate is lovely. Pact Beyond Death, as is our kind of card filtering spell of choice, and we can easily defeat this with our pretty decent creatures. Up at 3 mana, we got tons of things to ramp into with Huskforger. Devotion to Green Danu. This got nerfed a little on the activated ability, but I still think this sounds pretty good. Gains you life for Life Hacker, which we also have, and ramps pretty well, fills our graveyard. We got lots of reasons to want to do that. And then you could just sack it to, a Winding Assailant or something, or you could transform into Green Danu's Dark Return, which this card seems, I don't know, this seems pretty good. Even we're not even like cheating out massive things with Green Danu's Dark Return, but it still seems like it's going to be just a ton of value. It's end step, so it's like immediate. Speaking of pursuit cards, Winding Assailant got changed. It's now a 3 mana 4/4 trample. I said that 3/4 is a great stat line. 4/4 is a great stat line too. Dodging all that burn and small removal. Soya, now Executioner, got nerfed, so you don't you only draw, I believe you'd only draw cards they can't discard at all. Still an excellent card, and the backside is quite relevant. We don't have great ways of forcing discard, but it's okay. Up at 4, just nothing but haymakers with Meteor, Hellion, and Life Hacker. both utterly premium 4s. Also, Nightfall's in there in case our opponent gets a little frisky and we fall behind on board. Life Hacker Pact Beyond Death. This made a splash in April. If you haven't done this, Life Hacker, leveled up, hit your Pact Beyond Death. That puts you into an infinite loop. You draw a card, you gain 2 life, which makes you draw a card, which makes you gain 2 life. And basically, you need to make sure you have 2 mana up, because as you draw through your entire deck, you will eventually hit either a Hang or Sovereign's Execution, which you will use to kill your own Life Hacker. So you'll lose your Life Hacker, but in the end, you'll draw like 30 cards and gain 60 life, and hopefully that's good enough. If you're really fancy, you can play... what's that thing called? You can play Whelmlift Implosion. If you have a 1 of Whelmlift Implosion, you can blow up your Pact Beyond Death instead of your Life Hacker when you do that. I think that's not worth it. It's not a very good card otherwise, and once you've drawn 30 cards and gained 60 life, you're probably fine. Hang and Sovereign Fusion are also just good removal spells in general. Twilight Ambush is also good. You could play more removal, but you also got Meteor, Hellion, and Nightfall to cover your bases. Plus, I believe the backside of Soya does something. No, it doesn't. It just makes Death Touchers. That also kind of counts. Mana Base has 2 Gallows Route Timber and 1 Heap Ludicon to just keep the party rolling, as well as Karaz Observatory. Always love that graveyard hate. And sideboard, just a bunch of generically interesting cards. Bloodletting for tokens, Crucible for graveyards. You don't mind Crucible that much. It's a little annoying. You probably side out your Whining Assailants, or you side out Devotion Giordano if you're doing that. Culling Ritual for more tokens. Duress for control. Go Blank to really hate controlling graveyards. Hungry Blob, Twilight Ambush. Yep, I mean, some version of Black-Green Midrange is going to be good. This I can guarantee you. Let's talk Karaz. This deck only has 1 new card in it, and it's Humming Furnace. But you know, Humming Furnace is a pretty good deal. Land that can both enter untapped or be a artifact for Karaz Monument and a token for Kitsune Matriarch and Forsaken Penitence. Oh wait, there's a second new card. So yeah, this is basically the deck I ran into Worlds and got to 4th place with, but just tidied up a little. Start off with Kitsune Matriarch. Next turn, you got Karaz Monument with tons of artifacts and enchantments. Shigana Manor Burns ramp you into great 4-drops like Darkstar Severance. Offset Demon. Also, I don't know the nerf for this card, but I know it's getting nerfed. If this card's now unplayable, this deck's probably not good anymore. But hopefully it's not unplayable. You got Smart Shopper making brand new berries. All of these Gone Pickin' makes berries. That's 3, 4 enchantments. 1 for Fabricate Anomaly is also an artifact. Humming Furnace, you got tons of artifacts and chance for Karaz Monument, tons of tokens for Kitsune Matriarch and Forsaken Penitence. You're going to make tons of random chump blockers with Penitence. Fateful Ascent is your main removal spell of choice, along with the Gone Pickens. Sideboard, Burn It All Down. First time seeing this. I think this is just better than Deafening Clarion in a deck that can support the mana, and this deck can. Notably, just being good against Aristocrats is huge. Unbelievably huge. Full Moon Assault you gotta have, Golden Blooms for random permanents, Oberus for enchantments, and of course you gotta have Helio Spire. And rounding out, okay, there's 2 more. Let's talk Green-Blue Druid value. This, I was really worried, like, if I'm gonna build these Green-Blue Druid deck, how am I gonna win the game? And I think the answer is you just kind of beat them down. You kind of beat them with big creatures, because so many of the Druid cards are just randomly big creatures. This is a 23-land deck, but it also has 4 Shape the Pattern, and 4 Huskforger Acolyte. We're kind of just a blue-green value landfall deck. Rampant with Huskforgers and Root Fossils. Hitting Ursus Minora with all of our landfall triggers. Also the Cetral Shaper. This got nerfed, now 3 to flip, but still excellent when you flip it. Card Advantage Engine makes a ton of giant tokens. That's great. We're going to get Ancient pretty fast with 4 Primal Fissure, 2 Forgotten Foundation, Root Fossil Mills, Teeming Secrets puts cards into graveyard and is also another ramp spell. Aurora surveils cards into graveyards. Central Shaper surveils cards into graveyards. Umber Grove Tender doesn't put cards into graveyards, but just put lands onto the battlefield. And we have enough druids because Aurora, Airy, not Huskforger, Loresk, Central Shaper, other Grove Tenders, and Voice of the Old Grove are all druids. And this is not a huge ramp deck. Like, we're not ramping to 6s and 7s. We're ramping to, like, 5s. We're ramping to Airy Layfuse to double our mana, and then Aurora and Loresk and the backside of the Central Shaper as just Haymaker 5-drops that should be more than enough to take over the game. This deck does not really interact with the opponent at all. It just puts enormous creatures on the board around turn 5 or so, and beats their face in with it. Buffery Conservatory in the mana base, along with some Desolate Thickets. In the sideboard, Astrolings for control. Small creatures hit them with Momentous Strike. Big creatures hit them with Collector's Item. Flutter for graveyards, Negate for non-creatures, and Golden Bloom for random annoying permanents. I think this deck probably wants to find some kind of interaction it can play main. Search me if I know what that card would be. Maybe it's counterspells, but this deck really does not want to play at instant speed either. So yeah, it certainly looks powerful, but once again, much like on kind of the other end of the spectrum, where red-green Savage is like aggro but maybe too fair, this is value mid-range but potentially too fair. Like, for example, how are they going to deal with a Juniper's Awakening out of Jeskai control? So, as I said, Offset Demon got hit. I don't know how. And Iviana got hit. I do know how. The treasures are tapped now. I was never that convinced by Iviana, to be honest. So I think why not run Juniper's Awakening instead? The tokens are tapped now, but it's still an excellent card, and you don't even have to play a ton of sorceries for this, right? If you have to play some instance of your Juniper's Awakening, it's perfectly fine. Especially when you have Stargazing to trigger this very easily. Full Moon Assault as removal. Beyond Comprehension is a huge pickup for white-based control decks. And then your normal counterspells, Overrule Will and Unravel Thoughts, and there's Silent Lakefronts in the mana base. Sistral Charm is a counterspell. It's also a burn spell. Rounding out your removal package with Fateful Ascent. 3 become 1 will draw you cards as Receive Floor Treasures. Mana base is all business. Blade Flourishes in the sideboard for small creatures. All 4 Deafening Clarions for those annoying fair decks. Dormant Monstrosity and Planar Archives are both kind of diversify your threat's control mirror cards. I'm not even sure which one of these is better. Golden Moon for permanents. Helia Lacespire for graveyards. And these, I'm just going to go through them and just scroll through them again, are 10 decks that I am excited to try out into the new season. I'm super excited. If this turns into just like grindy mid-range off with fair aristocrats and fair looters and fair spellslinger and like control, but control's not the most dominant thing, and there's aggro, but it's like not turn 3 aggro, it's like turn 4 aggro. I mean, this will be just a dream format for me. So that's what we're hoping for. Thank you for watching, and good night.